Welcome to Saints on Cinema. I am Tim Wild, and we have a very special guest today because this morning for me, this evening for our guest, Steve Jubber. Did I pronounce that right? Close enough?
Jubber like rubber. Yeah, baby.
Yep. Steve is a new friend of the show and a friend of mine who lives in South Africa. Is that where you are currently? I know you did a little traveling during COVID and a little shut.
I'm still traveling, if you want to call it that. I am in exile from South Africa at the moment. I'm currently in Australia. Past the evening time, it's more closer to midnight. Eek.
Yeah, so we're gonna try and push into this discussion as quick as we can. I'm usually long-winded. I'm the Steve of our channel where I usually do all the talking, and my co-host like, can we wrap up and go to bed? And I'm like, but I still have so much more to say. But for those of you who don't know, which is probably everyone but me, and Steve is a podcaster from South Africa. In Joburg is the community, right? That's the name of your whatever it is. What is it? It's not a...
Yeah, look, G.i.Joburg was the name we settled on because when we started this out, we were in Johannesburg, South Africa, which to the locals is always shortened to be Joburg.
Okay.
And it had a nice ring to it, you know. Instead of G.I. Joe, it's G.i.Joburg. Berg is kind of another name for a city. Like this is like our little city of G.I. Joe.
Okay. Hey. It's awesome. So clearly, Steve is here. He is an expert on the G.I. Joe franchise, and he's not gonna accept that title or that description, but I'm laying it out there. And for anyone that ever researches anything about Steve, you'll find out very quickly how he knows almost everything there is to know about G.I. Joe. And he's been a fan for years and years and years and years and years, and puts out a lot of amazing videos on G.I. Joburg on YouTube. And you have a podcast that we'll plug later, but all of everything you can love about G.I. Joe, this is the guy who can tell you about it and help you stay in love and thrilled about it. So clearly, we're here today to talk about Nicolas Cage's Snake Eyes, because this is a fantastic movie. No,
agreed.
You know, as I was looking at this cover, I was like, believe everything except your eyes. Well, that sure is a description for this movie that we're going to be talking about, because I at times could not believe what I was seeing. And we're talking about the new Snake Eyes movie, G.I. Joe Origins, if that's the official name. I got this poster at the theater I went tonight. It's kind of nice. I like
very nice. Clearly tapping into that chop socky, schlock Hong Kong cinema kung fu movie vibe.
It's really beautiful, and I love how it doesn't have a lot of text and promotional crap on there. It's really nice. I don't know who this character is because he wasn't really in the movie. But, it's cool. I was like, yeah, I'll take that. I didn't even crease it or roll it up or anything. I might hang that somewhere. Anyway, Snake Eyes, G.I. Joe Origins, the movie, whatever the official name is. I've now seen it twice. Now, what we're going to do, Steve, is I invited you to discuss it with me because Ashley and Josh, my other two co-hosts, could not give a crap about this movie, and they're all really busy in their lives. And I love G.I. Joe. I wore this shirt. I'm not a teen t-shirt kind of a guy, but I wore it today. Because I wanted to talk about this film with someone that I could get some complaints out, someone that could hear me. This is going to be therapeutic for me, Steve, and I wanted someone amazing.
I'm with you on this journey, Tim.
Good. I love your enthusiasm. I've heard your reviews. I've heard several other discussions. I've watched other Joe experts and film experts have talked about it a little bit, and so much that I haven't gotten all my thoughts out on, or I remember who said what, but that doesn't matter. I don't ever watch any reviews or hear any commentations on anything until I see a movie, which is why I had to hold off on your discussion. I was really excited to hear it as soon as I got in my car leaving the theater. But I was kind of shocked by some of the praise you gave it, not because it's a bad movie. And I want to say that really clearly first, before we go into any spoilers or anything, get into our lists. I just want to say I didn't hate this movie. I didn't see what everyone else was praising it for as a film. I didn't see that. But, and I definitely don't see where it has a lot of praise as a G.I. Joe movie, but I didn't hate it. There's a lot to enjoy and a lot of fun to have in seeing this film. So what we usually do in our discussion, Steve, is we do a review. When we're not doing like a full review, we're doing a top 7 list, which is another feature we do. But we give it a rating of in the LDS Church. We have our doctrines of the afterlife, and it's broken down to 3 possible kingdoms in the afterlife, and you have the celestial, the terrestrial, and the telestial kingdom. And without going into the doctrine of our church, I just want to say we rate movies based on that.
Out of 3?
Out of 3, yeah. So
wow,
that we can have that discussion another time. But yeah, so the celestial is the highest degree of glory, right? So for us, that means go see this movie in the theater. Okay. Terrestrial in the middle means get it on DVD, but you don't have to see it in the theater. Just save that money and just buy it when it comes out on Blu-ray or whatever. And then telestial, the lowest, is just don't even bother until you see it streaming or something, then you can check it out. So don't even go out of your way to see it, or you know, on a Redbox or whatever. But you know, we don't support pirating, so that's underneath all that. But theater, or definitely get it when it comes out, or just wait till you come upon it somewhere else. So I'm gonna ask you, give us your general, non-spoiler, just general thoughts about the movie, and then what would you suggest for the judgment to theater or DVD or Blu-ray, and then or just wait till it streams. I'll let you do that, and then we're gonna get into our spoiler discussion. But I'll clip this out.
A general note to anyone like myself who is dyed-in-the-wool G.I. Joe diehard fan is that we've unfortunately become accustomed to mediocrity in cinematic offerings.
And I don't get it. I don't get it.
We set the bar pretty low. The first 2 films were not great cinema. And while Snake Eyes, G.I. Joe Origins, you know, we were never expecting it to be Batman Begins.
Correct.
But it at least doesn't talk down to its audience. At least I feel like I'm watching real human beings acting, feeling, thinking, going through emotions as real human beings would, instead of just action figures being pulled out of a toy box and gone, you know, clashing them together. So there is a respect and an integrity that Snake Eyes never had to have, but surprisingly does. So I think that's perhaps my opening gambit. And as far as the 3 tiers are concerned, well, I gotta say that we live in rather unique times, and I'm looking for any excuse to go to the cinema again.
Yeah.
If you're not stuck in lockdown, and you want just a popcorn eating, soda guzzling experience, well, G.I. Joe delivers that. It's at the very least a chop socky kung fu movie that happens to have G.I. Joe characters in it. Like, it's a no-brainer for Joe fans, and it's a no-brainer for anyone who's a fan of blockbuster action movies. So in this day and age, see it in theater. I can't recommend it more strongly. It's just like, it's a tonic to those of us who've been missing the cinematic experience for so long.
Wow.
And who knows, the box office draw could certainly use a little bit of assistance.
Yeah, that's the thing, because you and I as Joe fans, we want more product, and any Joe is better than no Joe in the theaters for sure. But
and a rough opening weekend for this film, sadly.
Yeah, for sure. Do you now? You said it's not Batman Begins good. Would you say it's like X-Men, the first X-Men, good?
Ironically, both of them, we encounter our lead character in like a pit fight. So yeah, the parallel is definitely there. Look, X-Men, the Bryan Singer, what is it, 2001?
Right. Yeah, that was. Yes, that was X1. Yeah.
It hasn't aged well, unfortunately. You know, in the pantheon of superhero movies that came almost directly on its heels, not directly, sort of 5 to 6 years after it, it has not aged kindly. You know, time hasn't been kind to it.
Right.
There certainly has been demonstrated that superhero combat can be very exciting to watch, and you can get away with wearing the right costumes.
Yes.
So maybe G.I. Joe or Snake Eyes Origins has a few missteps in that it didn't get colorful enough quickly enough.
Yeah.
But I didn't mind that because I was pleasantly surprised with these characters being given dimensionality. So you're not going to see a sailor and his parrot,
Right.
but you're also not going to see these cardboard cutouts
or anything like that. Just there's very little G.I. Joe element, and that's why compared to the first X-Men is because it's like they threw out some character names and a little bit of their identities, a little bit of some background, but like just hope that you didn't notice how much was omitted from those rich characters from the comic books. And then they learn later, you know what, you can be very loyal, like you said, with later Marvel movies. They're like, you know what, you can go all in on these characters and it sells and it's fun and exciting. That's how I feel about G.I. Joe movies. I feel like we're sadly still in X-Men 1 range, or I wouldn't even see Batman Begins. And I understand the comparison, but I was like, oh, because this movie feels tonally a lot like Batman Begins. Doesn't pull it off, because Batman Begins is my favorite Batman movie. And I love the Michael Keaton 89, but of all the modern Batman movies, Batman Begins I think is the best Batman movie. Love Dark Knight, but I don't feel like that's a good crime drama. That's not a good Batman movie. My favorite Batman movie with Batman the character, true to the character, what I love about him, is the first movie. We're still in that. Oh, it's so sad because we're so far ahead in like technology with movie making. I don't know why they just don't just roll the dice and just give us a good G.I. Joe movie. But whatever. This has been said all over the place. That's good praise from you, Steve. It really is. I disagree on a little bit of it just because I don't think I think it's a fun ride. You're absolutely right. I'm gonna say same things. It's a celestial rating. Go see it in the theaters. Support it because it is fun to see. It's a fun watch. When I went the second time, because I want to prepare for this discussion, post having listened to a bunch of discussions on it and reviews, I wanted to go back and look at what they were saying that I didn't really appreciate the first time, see if I changed my mind or was doubling down on my concerns. And, it's a fun movie. It really is a fun, action-packed movie. There's a lot to be, a lot that could be better about it in my mind, but we'll get into that. So I guess for our basic review, it's fun, it's exciting. There is some depth with the characters. There's a lot of emotion that those characters present. The acting is fantastic for most of them. I'll just say that. But your lead characters are on camera most of the time. They're fantastic. Storm Shadow, Snake Eyes, all the Ninja Clan, everybody is great. Great. It's just the other Joe characters that I had problems with, but we'll talk about that. But yeah, so I guess that's a mutual celestial race. So if you're watching this and you just got this far, don't want to go into spoilers, you're on the fence about it, just like everyone on Rotten Tomatoes was making you feel, then go see the movie. It's a fun ride, and if you care about G.I. Joe, definitely go see it in the theater. Don't wait, because they need the encouragement, because I think they're on the right track. X2 was way better than X1. X2 is one of my favorite comic book movies ever, top 10 for sure. We're on track that we could go somewhere good with the G.I. Joe with this franchise. I mean, with this current whatever film canon. I think they're on track that they could go somewhere great with it. They have a lot of course correcting to do, in my opinion, but we'll see. But definitely go see it. So what we're gonna do the rest of the episode is we're gonna talk about my top 7. I'm gonna call them grievances. I didn't say that earlier. My top 7 grievances, and then Steve's gonna have his top 7 things he loved about it. And some of these things might mix, because as I listened to your review, Steve, talking about the things that you loved about it, some of those were I'm like, oh, I was so frustrated about that. And so, like, there's some things I just like,
oh, goody. Let's do it.
Like, I need someone to talk me through, like, what did I miss, Steve? So usually I'm a lot more specific on my list, just like moments or characters or whatever. Oh, the list just went on and on and on with this one, though. And it's not, and again, I didn't hate this movie. There's a lot I loved about it. I have a little caveat at the end of all the things I really like, but I'm gonna let you praise it, and I'll celebrate with you with a lot of those things. But so top 7, we'll just jump in. The number one, and these are not, I didn't put them in a specific order, but the number one for me of my grievances is the opening scene, like the whole thing, because there's a lot of misses. Now we just watched the Mortal Kombat. You saw the new Mortal Kombat, I'm sure. Did you not?
I missed it. I'm not much of a Mortal Kombat fan, to be
I'm not
honest.
either.
I want.
I'm not either. Just keeping up on the ones. But in Mortal Kombat, there was an opening scene where you have the tragedy in the past that, like, motivates the character, the protagonist, to go into the story, and it was really good. And a lot of people disagree with me, but the opening sequence was fantastic. And then once you get into the story, it's like, what is this? It's like the story just gets all crazy and goofy, and it's not as consistent. The beginning was like a very, very serious and like almost like Lord of the Rings style, not Lord of the style, but I mean there was real tone and real excitement and real like mystery, and like you're like, whoa, you were hooked. And then it's just kind of like goes everywhere. This one was the opposite. It was like a little disappointing up front, and then it kind of tightened up the rest of the movie. But the whole opening scene was well you start with the dialogue.
I don't think our young Snake Eyes really stuck the landing there.
No, he was too old for one. You had no. I mean, I think for him to be asking about what a safe house is, I think you commented on this too. He was a little old to be asking that kind of a naive. Even if he didn't know what a safe house was, the dialogue where he's like, "Is there a safe at the house?" And he's like, "No, it's another word for a cabinet or whatever." He's kind of blushing off. Like it was like, what? And there's no.
I was very much in the danger zone when that scene was playing. I could not breathe a sigh of relief yet, because I was like,
like clenching your chair, like
ropey. This is ropey.
Yeah.
So I will concede that point.
Yeah.
That something was a bit off about the beginning.
There was no setup. There's no connection. You didn't see you needed a couple moments of them fishing together or like hunting together or just even going on a walk. Besides, he's just pushing his motorcycle, and like the second thing that they either of them say is about the safe house. And he's like, I overheard you on the phone talking about the safe. I'm like, what? Like it was just weird. And then you have this feel like there's someone watching them in the bushes. Okay. But it's like daylight, but they don't attack till like the middle of the night. I'm like, well, it's just the two of them. I was like, I don't know whatever. They don't have to attack right there. But I was like, they go inside, nothing else happens. Then they go inside, and then he like wakes his son up in the middle of the night. He's like, we got to get out of here. And all he does is like gets his son out the window, and he just goes out the front door. I'm like, when we learn later, he's like this ex G.I. Joe great expert, and it's like, I'm like, why did you just casually go right out the front door holding your gun, military style? And I'm like, what?
Well, look, it was amateur hour on both sides of the fence, because I think I almost laughed out loud in the cinema when Kid Snake Eyes, like bolts out the window, and the guy with the machine gun, like after barely even searching, he's like, "Oh, the kid got away." It's like, you're useless. You are useless. He's literally in the bushes just outside the cabin.
Right outside the door, right out the front door. There's a bush right there, and it's like, okay. This is a Cobra faction. We find out later. This is an attack, an assassination by Cobra, by the order
of a G.I. Joe member.
On a really serious, high-ranking one. It's like you don't have any backup outside in the bushes. Like you took your two marksmen in with you, and it's just the two guys and you, because he has the two laser pointers. That's it. I'm like, and that's it? You didn't secure the perimeter. You were watching the cabin all day long. You didn't have one person post outside just in case. Whatever.
Yeah. Like I say, danger zone at the top of this movie. I was like, oh, I'm gonna hate this.
Yeah, and then he steps
Everyone's
out.
fears are confirmed.
Yeah.
But Tim, did you not breathe a sigh of relief the first time we saw Henry acting? Like after the fight in the pit, and that scene between him and Kenta, I'm like, There's lovely pacing between their deliveries.
Yes.
There's a sense of stakes. There's a sense of danger. Like Snake Eyes, I mean, he might speak, sure, which we're unaccustomed to, but he's no chatty Cathy. This guy's hard. He's been living a hard life. It just happens to look like an A-list movie star.
Yeah. The performance did pull us out of there, but like I was like trying to figure out the tone. Tone is a very big thing for me when I'm watching a movie. And I was trying to figure out the tone, because between the weird clunky dialogue, even the guy, I don't know if we ever knew his name, the killer, was like, he made like some jokes, and he tells him to roll the dice. He rolls the dice, and he's like, "Our house always wins." I was like, "It's not your house." Like that line didn't even make sense. And he like has him drop the gun, and he's like, all of it. And so like Snake Eyes' dad is like dropping all these. Like that's a comedic moment. That's not how that plays. Not when you're about to kill. This is supposed to be the depth, right? This is supposed to be the stakes and the tone for the motivation for Snake Eyes being so hard, like you said. And he pulls it off, but like, you're telling jokes and being goofy about it right before a serious moment, and then he holds a gun right to his head, literally right to his face, cuts away, pulls the trigger, and then comes back to show the body on the floor. No blood or anything on his head. He's just he's just dead. Like, I guess he pulled down off camera and shot. Whatever. I'd just
forgotten
like,
about the arsenal that gets dropped at the front door. I mean, that would have been perfectly at home in Last Action Hero, but
yeah, that's something to do to show a where they drop ridiculous things like a butcher's
hand grenade.
Exactly, and then a stick of dynamite with the clock still going, like stuff like that. That's a gag. Not at the beginning of a freaking G.I. Joburg was trying to be. Anyway, the whole opening scene just didn't work for me. It was just yeah. Like you said, the kid's gone. There was no blood, and it's not like you need gore. I'm just saying, but don't show the guy pointing the gun right at his face, then cut away and come back to it, and he's just there dead. And you needed that moment. You needed Snake Eyes to go in there and talk to his dad before he died. You needed him to face running into the fire. You know, you need to have that other than him just going and then cut to Henry going, you know what I mean? It was just, I don't know. It's
very good impression that. I believed it, dude. Yeah.
I should have been young Snake Eyes. But I mean, the transition was good, and then all of a sudden it got exciting, and I was like, "Oh, good! I'm watching Wolverine now." And then they show the pit fight and everything, and I had the same thought. I was like, "This Road Pig, he's fighting Road Pig." I thought that was awesome. So good. And all they knew was a few punky guys with tattoos and stuff in the background. You're like, "This is totally the Dreadnoks. That'd be so awesome." But
you've done a second watch. Did it start feeling like maybe there were intentional background talent like that were occupying these roles? Because there is a sort of a hint that Cobra has its tentacles into big business, extensive enterprises, and gangs.
Right.
The Dreadnoks. Like there were some line drops later on.
I feel like that's what what they're going for, and like that you have the feel like these are who these groups are without actually throwing out too many names. I don't know why they'd be hesitant to do, and it's fine because if you hear Dreadnoks, you're like, okay, then now you got to show me Zartan or something. You know, it's like I think then you start getting a little too committal in a first movie where you're not investing in casting a Zartan or something. Instead, you just have a guy that seems like Road Pig. You're like, oh, this is kind of like that guy, you know. And Marvel does that kind of stuff all the time where you're like, this guy, this feels like this scene, and this feels like this group, and they just don't really say it necessarily until later on as like an Easter egg. And that's the fun part of these movies. And I love that. I love the fight. I thought it was shot really well. It was really exciting to see. And I didn't make the connection the first time how he fights with the chain, and then later on at the end of the movie he pulls out and he has a chain wrapped around his wrist where he's fighting at the end, even though it doesn't do anything. It didn't accomplish, he doesn't block with it or anything. It's just, I don't know why he wants to weigh his sword hand down, but whatever. But you know, it was a little a little mirroring there.
Wasn't it his left? Sort of a shield sword. I don't know.
I don't remember. But I was like, it didn't do anything until all it did was it got him tangled up when the snake bit the guy. And so then he's like,
well, no. He used the chain ultimately to wrap it around Kenta's ankle. Yeah. So that, but I guess it was a bit of sleight of hand. It's like you think it's a buckler or a shield, but actually it's going to be the way I rope you into the snake pit.
But it'd be smart to do that without tangling yourself. Whatever. I'm not criticizing that scene. That wasn't on my list. But I liked the second scene. And then I felt like I'm watching Batman Begins, because here comes Ra's al Ghul to come in and start telling him some origin, give him some quest, some motivation. And this is where you're going to have to help me out, Steve. Seeing this movie twice, and I'm famous on my channel that I have a really hard time following plot sometimes, especially where I and all my racist ignorance sometimes can't tell some people apart when you start throwing a whole bunch of people at me all at once. So my second issue is the dock scene. I know my list isn't every scene, but the first scene and then the dock sequence, okay? First of all, the guy that talks to him is the main bad guy, the cousin, right? That's the cousin guy of Storm Shadow. He's the one that recruits Snake Eyes, and he says, "Kenta." Okay, you'll have to keep all these. I heard you on your channel too, doing the same thing. But Kenta, he recruits Snake Eyes. We don't really understand why, other than he's a really talented thug. I don't understand what his real job was, to what he was supposed to accomplish at the docks, other than his whole point was to get him into the boat, right? So he shows up then it cuts to the dock. And by the way, I love the credits floating in the air and then having like a little dialogue. I thought that was very comic booky without being cheesy. I thought it was really cool how they did that. And then they do it again when they go to Tokyo, and then the movie never goes anywhere else, so you don't see it again. But I thought it was really cool how they did that. But then he's at the docks, right? And this whole scene didn't make sense, and it was dumb. It was overall dumb. He pulls up to the dock, and first of all, you see Storm Shadow, sunglasses on, hair, and then his beard. I was like, did they cast Paul from your show? Because he looked just like him. I was like, yeah, the angle. You couldn't really see his face. I didn't see the casting. I didn't know who Storm Shadow was. And I was
Paul's gonna love that. Oh my word.
But he looked just like him with this beard. Cool. Oh, cool. It's just like, hey, big boy, fish boy, or whatever. I'm like, okay, he gets in there, but as he's going in, he calls him fish boy. He's trying to razzle him and everything, and then like he kicks the soccer ball back to the kids, and then he's they're just kids, and then the guy's like ready to cut Snake Eyes, and then Tommy steps in. He's like, hey, he's cool, but then he calls him fish boy again as soon as he gets inside. I'm like, what? You're trying to build this like tension so that you can show that they break down the tension, but there's no connection. I'm not believing any of it, because as soon as they go inside, he starts calling him fish boy again, and it's like, I think everyone in there smells like fish, and I think you smell the fish more than the guy once you're inside there gutting all these huge fish.
What's your question, Tim? What's your question, buddy?
Okay, so what's Snake Eyes doing there? And then who sent Tommy? Tommy was there trying to get to the cousin, right? Wasn't that his whole thing? But then he comes up and says, hey, the boss wants to talk to you. Leave the knife. So they go into this other back room where they're surrounded by gangsters, and ninjas. It's a sword fight in 10 seconds. And that was the cousin.
I think gangster works. These are Yakuza.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the cousin steps in. So the cousin recruited Snake Eyes to send him to the docks where he can just show up and pull anyone into the back room and shoot him on sight. Why did he need to get Storm Shadow to go into the boat to go somewhere else? And why did he need Snake Eyes to bring him into the back room other than to be placed in there for a fight? And why did he hand him a gun when all of them have swords, and this is like a big honorable, like a sword fighting kind of a culture that they're all coming from? I didn't understand. Who's doing what? Like, what's the point of the scene? What's other than to have an action sequence and get them together in this very forced chemistry that didn't work? Could you defend it at all or explain it?
Well, I think I can take a crack. You know, if we have the hindsight that this is a big setup to insert Snake Eyes into the Arashikage castle under false pretenses.
Okay.
This is an enormous hoodwink to the audience. That Kenta is grooming Snake Eyes for this very specific purpose, has him at an extremely low level in his organization. Let's face it, like, if Kenta wasn't grooming Snake Eyes for something special, he would have been in the Yakuza at a much higher level because of his fighting ability. He is wasted gutting fish and inserting submachine guns into them. Like, his talents are wasted there, clearly. So clearly he's punching below his weight, and that leads me to believe that Kenta always had this plan in mind. And Tommy, trying to infiltrate the Yakuza, Storm Shadow, trying to infiltrate the Yakuza, played right into Kenta's plans. He orchestrated the whole thing at that point. He was
so like, you don't think so? What was the point of? What was he? Was he really trying to get him onto the boat? And where was the boat going to go?
Just away. He wanted Tommy to escape. Oh, you're talking about the big boat, or the boat that they're about to steal?
The little motorboat, and he's like, he almost got on there. He saw him. He's like, and he went, oh, and then he chased him down. He's like,
oh, so yeah, Tommy. Well, yeah, Snake Eyes wants to escape with Tommy.
Yeah.
In order to further the plan of infiltrating the Arashikage.
Okay.
But Tommy saw an opportunity to kill Kenta. So
I just feel like we don't know enough about any motivations between all these double crosses until like 2/3 into the movie, and by then we've
Sure.
completely forgotten about what happened early on. And I was just like,
Well,
"What is happening?"
on the superficial, no, on the superficial level, it plays one way. Before we get any information, it plays as simple as this guy's a spy. Snake Eyes, you kill him. Snake Eyes has a change of heart, and from that point onwards, they're trying to escape, or at
Okay.
least Snake Eyes is trying to escape, and Tommy's trying to escape and or kill Kenta, who he's there to sort of rub out. You know, he let this man get banished, but that turned out to be a mistake. He's about to correct his mistake. But then, once we have the added benefit of hindsight, we know now that actually this was a giant ruse to get Snake Eyes into Tommy's good graces, get him into the Arashikage.
Sounds like a lot of foresight to figure that all out. And like, I don't know, pulling him back there, knowing he's not going to pull the trigger, like all that stuff. It just seems like there would have been easier. You could have just had a bunch of guys. I don't know. I'm not going to sit there and try and rewrite it. It's just, it seemed really clunky because it seemed like both people were there at the same place just for placement for the action sequence to have a really forced relationship. Because that's one thing I didn't like about the movie is the chemistry between Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow. I didn't feel it. I did not feel any emotion, and mostly it's because of Snake Eyes, but we'll talk about that in a second. And not the performance, but with the script. But the other things in that scene, I was like trying to figure out why. Sorry, there's on my mouth. The other thing is, calm down. The other thing, they should have lost that fight. We have them surrounded by like a bunch of guys with swords, like a lot of them. And they all come in, and there's that one scene where they fight through the first group, and then they get almost out the door, and then the other guys are coming in. They turn around, the remaining guys come in there, and then they go back to back. And I gotta say, every time Storm Shadow busted out two swords and had that freaking pose, I was like, yeah, dude, this is freaking awesome. And then Snake Eyes always went like that. But you have to have them get overtaken a little bit, because at the end of the movie, we also have them back to back with a surrounding group of ninjas, only less of them. Only we know that they can kick butt together. So like, you have to show them defeat a little bit in the beginning so we can see them progress later and see how there's been some development and they can learn how to work together. And I'm sorry, in the first fight, they start it, Storm Shadow's wearing a suit and bound. And they still win the fight. And so by the time you get to the end, I'm like, there's no stakes here because we've seen them just kick these guys trash. It's the same guys. I don't know. And maybe there's some Cobra guys in there, but it doesn't matter. I just like, there was no progress. There was no arc. I felt like for the maturity of these characters. Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes were like invincible in the beginning and invincible at the end. I would like to see some development, that there was some training that actually was applied other than like the challenges for Storm Shadow or for Snake Eyes, that he actually learned something in his skill, in this journey. It's just like the first Zorro movie with Antonio Banderas. Like when his first mission, he kind of sucks. He gets through it, but he sucks. And he's already had a little bit of training. He's got some skill. But by the time he gets to the end where he finally dons the suit and he's Zorro, now he's like all on or full on just indestructible. He's perfect. He's just everything is just so glorious and flawless, and you see the transition. I think it would have been more effective to show them a little more clumsy up front.
Sure. Yeah, it's never really disclosed where Snake Eyes became such a proficient fighter, other than just survival in the pit.
In the pit,
and it's established. It's established that he's never lost a fight, and I'm like, wow, how do you get so good to have never lost a fight to anyone's memory?
Yeah.
It seems like he kind of was born with his plot armor.
Yeah, his plot, exactly. Spent a lot of times in that forest by himself fighting snakes or something. I don't know. The next one, the Arashikage stuff. Not talking about the masters, and I'm not talking about the challenges. That's his whole.
Oh, sorry, Tim. I just so that it's on record. Once again, maybe the Yakuza in that opening sword fight had been instructed, show these guys a hard time, but they've got to get away.
Did you see what they did to that cab of that truck? I guess
I've never seen anything like that before. That was amazing.
Awesome. It was cool, and I love when they opened the door. I was like, that is awesome at the end. But like, I was like, how do you miss them? All you gotta do is do it at that angle, or where the seats are when they're standing on the back, but they're stabbing everywhere. But maybe you're right. Maybe that was intentional, and they have that good precision that they can shish kebab that car and miss them completely. And then one wound to his story. That was awesome. I loved it, but I don't know. And you gave a lot of praise to the cinematography in that scene. I gotta say that fight sequence, I did not like how it was shot. I love the choreography. I love the style. I love everything that was done. And I was like, maybe I'm just a jerk, but when I listened to Joe talk about it, he had kind of the same thoughts. It was like,
so was it a case of too much shaky cam?
Yeah. Well, there's that, and there's what I call is the Transformers effect, where the Michael Bay movies, other than a couple times when a Transformer transforms, the camera goes right up to their like stomach, and then gears just shoved all over the screen. You can't see what's happening, and then it pans back, and then you have a transformed character. It's like you see a sword like move, and then all of a sudden you see like it cuts to like a hit, and then it cuts to a drop. But you didn't have a really good motion or sense of what actually happened. You saw a few people fall. You only see like 4 people in that fight actually go down, but there was like 20 guys there. Kill Bill, you saw every single one of her sword swings, and it was beautifully shot. And again, the choreography was fantastic, but I just don't think they did a good job of capturing it. But it gets better later on. That was the only scene I had a problem with that. Anyway, Arashikage, I was trying to figure this whole place out, dude. Like, they pull up, there's 2 security guards that are in their ninja uniforms. Then they drive up, and there's this big line of like Asian butlers or something who are just hanging out in their robes and stuff. And then he goes in and meets the masters. And then I'm trying to get a sense of what is this culture of this clan. And you saw the movie The Hunted, right, with Christopher Lambert? Oh, please tell me you've seen that. In a while?
It's going on the list, Tim. I'm a toy guy. I wouldn't say I'm a cinema guy, not necessarily.
I'm a little shocked by that. You need to watch that. We need to come back and revisit this together. But there's a ninja clan in there, and you have a good sense of like what they do during the day, because as far as I can see, all they do is stand around at attention. The guys in their swords, they stand guard at all times. Like, why would anyone want to join this clan? You need to show them fencing or fishing or farming or sewing or painting or whatever, like talking, whatever. Yeah, but there's like nothing.
Fair enough. There's time and there are plenty of hours in the day for that. But when Darth Vader arrives in his Imperial shuttle, everybody better stand at attention. So,
agreed. But like the whole movie,
when Storm Shadow returns to the clan after his mission.
But as soon as Snake Eyes, who's nobody, gets out and starts walking around, they're all still just like standing there. I'm like, did they not? Do they do anything? And I don't know. I just think she should have shown a little life, a little activity. All he does is he looks at this highly fortified with a bunch of security cameras and like 1.5 foot high lasers that anyone could just jump. I could jump over those lasers. Like, how do you get over our perimeter? Well, it's not hard, But I don't know. I just didn't get a good sense of what they do here. They have like a bike workshop. They're developing this armor and this technology and stuff, but they don't really even talk about that. And I kept going back to the first X-Men. Remember when Wolverine's being shown around the school with this little narration? You're getting a feel for what this environment is, and we're going to spend the next hour and a half here in this little village. We don't know anything about it really, other than his room and his conversations with the masters. That's it. And it's not like I need this big bio, but I'm like, I didn't get a sense that it was a real place. That this is a place where he could belong. Where he calls it home, that's a big deal. This is a home. It sure didn't feel like a place that you'd want to be a home. It didn't feel like a place to belong to. It just felt like a place to go stand and work. I couldn't get my head around what is the concept of this clan. And their property was huge. It was huge. It was all, and it shows in the fight when he torches the building of the tower. It's like, oh, this is so crazy. Anyway, I don't want to spend too much more time. I'm trying to go through this faster, but it's like, I didn't get a feel that this is a real place. Like when Storm Shadow is denied the ability to take over, to me it felt like it was not taking over a military faction, not a culture and a history of his family. Like I didn't feel like there was anything here. I think even the first movie, this Rise
they're
of
all
Cold,
a clan of ninjas, bro, and they're practicing invisibility.
Yeah.
That's why it's just sort of.
You at least see them doing katas in the American Ninja movies. They're at least exercising. They don't even do that in this movie. They're just standing there. I don't know. I just for him to feel like he needs to belong somewhere, I think it left. There was no life in this place. I don't know. The Snake Eyes stuff, real quick. By the time he finally gets a suit, way too much armor plating on this stupid suit. It was ridiculous, and I think that's been hashed out. I would actually go for the black BDUs and the stupid lips. I really would, over the way this costume looks. I'm not a fan of the Snake Eyes costume in the first movie, but I like the second one better. But I was not impressed with it, and he needs to wear it in the third, but everyone else has already talked about that. But Snake Eyes has a line. He says, "We could have been brothers." Or Storm Shadow says, "We could have been brothers," and Snake Eyes is like, "You're the only brother I've ever known." I never felt that they were bonding anywhere. They fought a couple times together. He didn't shoot him in the head. He had a line where he said, "I saw honor in your eyes too," which doesn't make sense because Snake Eyes the entire movie showed no honor. And his motives were completely contrary to what he was doing the entire movie. So I'm like, what are they reading here that is supposed to... It felt forced. It was like an Anakin and Padme relationship. I was like, I'm not feeling this chemistry between them. Can you I'm not saying justify it, but you seem like you really did connect with the emotions of the characters, and I was wanting a brotherhood. I really felt like there was a stronger brotherhood in the first Rise of Cobra movie, in those couple of minutes that they showed, and the betrayal in the couple minutes that they showed. I'm like, how did they do that so easily there that I get it? And here they had a whole movie to do it, and I was like, there's nothing. And nothing to do with the actors. Nothing to do with the actors. Did you feel it?
Did the performances not have a certain warmth to them in their dealings with one another?
Yeah, but
I mean, very immediately they've survived an ordeal together. Like in their first brushing, and that kind of forms a bond. Which
your theory is that was staged. So I'm like, oh, that's not even genuine. But still.
But in Tommy's eyes, it was absolutely genuine. And Snake Eyes bears the scar to remember it by. Isn't he the one who gets stabbed through the door?
No, Storm Shadow.
Storm Shadow.
Wait.
No, Snake Eyes gets stabbed through the door just to sell it a little bit harder.
I don't know. I really didn't feel anything between the two of them. I was having a hard time figuring out how Snake Eyes knew everything. Every time he went to go meet the bad guys, he went to a different place. First he goes to the bathhouse, then he goes to like some crazy secured basement. Then the next time he steals the rock, he goes to like the bridge. And I'm like, he was been with these guys for 1 month, and he was at the fish house for that month. I'm like,
I'd like to think they didn't sweat the small stuff. That being like, where will we next meet? Oh, meet here this time. Like, that's kind of that's between the scenes.
Right. I was just like, what? I don't know. And there's a lot of the back and forth. His growth, right? He's like, his whole thing was like the betrayal. The whole concept, from what I understood, the whole concept of his little journey. The only thing I can get of an arc in this character in this movie is that he was supposed to learn to like let go of the revenge side and to embrace I don't know, I guess restitution for his sins kind of a thing. I can't even think of what else his motive would be other than undoing what he was doing, trying to get revenge. By the end of that, I'll tell you the one brilliant thing that came to me as you guys were talking. I don't think you guys quite said it this way, but one thing the concept was Cobra was offering him revenge. Here's the guy. And I think it's really cool that they were delivering on that. That was just like the Last Jedi when they gave, what's his name? They were like, you sold him out. We're going to give you the loot. You can take off. They actually followed through with their promise. They didn't screw him over. Snake Eyes was delivered, the killer of his father. They said, do what you want. They let him go. I was like, well, that's kind of cool that they had that integrity. But what really, by the end of the movie, G.I. Joe was like, hey, we're not offering you revenge, but instead we're offering you the truth. And earlier in the movie, Storm Shadow says, I can't offer you a background or a name. All I can do is give you a home. And then that's something better. G.I. Joe was giving him a little bit of a background. Here's who your father really was. Here's a way that you can fulfill his shoes and his placement. And I think it's cool that he had the option of revenge or honor. And by the end of it, G.I. Joe's who offered him an opportunity to fulfill that honor, and he denied the Cobra. I think that's pretty cool. They didn't. It was like way deep layer to try and interpret that, but I thought that is actually what happened. I think it's really cool. That gives him motivation to be with Cobra. I just feel like the revenge side for Storm Shadow, which is true to the character, should have been established. That should have been the other turn. I didn't feel any revenge side for him by the end of the movie. Other than
you got to hold something back for the sequel that we'll never get.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. Seikai's I didn't feel that it was true to the character. And the same thing with Storm Shadow. His thing was never about power, you know. It was about clearing his name and figuring it was about honor. Who killed the master? Or what, you know, why was I framed? Why are you putting this Westerner above me and the clan? All that kind of stuff. I just felt like they missed on some of these core elements of Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow. So that's my 4 and 5. 6 are the challenges. We don't need to go into. We know what the concerns are about the challenges. I'm not going to complain about giant snakes. I will say I jumped just like you did at the jump scare. It was very well done. Well, it's a cheap shot, but whatever, they can do it. The first one was brilliant. And my question is this about the first one. When he's looking at the table, I think that I was like, he says earlier that only 20% of them survived the third challenge, right? So that means, what does that mean? Do all these ninjas here on the campus, have they all been thrown into the pit with the snakes, all of them? And if that's the 20%, there's a good 50 to 100. When they charge down to the shrine in that one scene, there's like 100 of them there. Let's say there's 50. Does that mean there's another what? 200 guys that have been fed to the snakes that failed the third challenge, the fourth challenge? And does that mean if only so many get to the third challenge, does that mean that many of them beat the hard master? I'm like, come on. I mean, it should be a little more special of a thing that I don't know. And they didn't explain all that. I was just trying to think with the weapons table, is it possible that he doesn't actually use any of those weapons, but when he's holding it up and flashing it around and Snake Eyes is getting like a little like guarded? Is that to kind of get him all aggressive and get him all defensive before he pulls up the bowls? And now he's like, now let's see if you can drop your ego. You know what I mean? Because I thought that was very interesting how that there are all these options. Like, what are the other tests if it's not just straight combat? And I loved it. I didn't see it coming. I love where he just goes up and asks him. And that was a cool moment. I'll give it that. I love everything about the first challenge. The Masters were fantastic performers and everything. But the second challenge, I didn't go to the Empire Strikes Back like everyone else did. I went to the Batman Begins when he was like on a hallucinogen and he was like having the flashes of the bats and stuff, and it was like a test to see if he can overcome that and just get peace of mind. Well, that it didn't do anything. I'm not going to buy anything in the story of what happened there, because he was still seeking revenge even after he made peace after the vision, so it really didn't accomplish anything. And then
well, it accomplished one thing, and that's just kind of give the audience insight into his mind, which, you know, is neither here nor there. Look, yeah. I mean, that second trial really was for our benefit and our benefit alone. It's like, yeah he's still hung up on his daddy. Yeah.
And I don't know. And they make the line about how the blind master can can see you lying. And I like the line at the dinner or when they're having dinner or whatever. He was like, oh, he's not the hard master's not watching it, but the blind master is. And it said he can see a lie when he hears one, and then he immediately cuts to him lying about stealing the bike. He's like, Tommy said I could borrow his bike. I'm like, what are you learning here? And this is my other question, Steve. If he's infiltrating this group, why is he being such a dickhead? You know, why is he so sarcastic? And wouldn't he be putting on a little better of a show, showing more respect, if he's actually trying to get in with them to get to the stone to fulfill his mission? But he's like, he's making it as hard as possible for himself just to give the like this is a bad script writing thing, just to give us some like, oh look, he's colorful and fun and arrogant, and now you get to see him being broken down. Because I think if you're gonna play him being arrogant and everything, then don't have him doing the double agent thing. Play that. Have him being humbled by the teachings he learns there, and then come out on top. Or do the double agent thing where he's like going in very peacefully, but then it turns out that that's not who he really is, and then he turns at the end. I don't think they both work together, because I'm trying to figure out his angle. If he's trying to infiltrate, but he's being a complete dick about it, and like like lying and cheating and being sorry. She says no ego, and then he's suddenly like, "You're not going to congratulate me." I'm like,
So to that, I'll say that Snake Eyes shows edge when he needs to, because he is hard and he needs to play himself. He shouldn't have a personality transplant like at the outset, because that's equally suspicious. But when he needs to play meek, boy, does he bring it in spades. And I refer specifically to the moment where he cuts himself on Morning Light and offers it to Storm Shadow. That is humble. He's kowtowing. He's like, I release you from your life debt to me, and I now offer you my blood, brother.
did you think that was genuine? Or was
Absolutely
that
not. Of course, it was a ploy to get his blood. Yes, it was totally premeditated. So
First time I saw
I'm
it,
just saying that when Snake Eyes needs to be humble and respectful, he could play that card. It's in his arsenal, but he's not going to like immediately be a different person. You know, he's got to kind of juggle these two characters and not get anyone tipped off, basically, that he's infiltrating.
I think he could have tried a little harder to soften as he went along, because I didn't see any transition. I really didn't until the very end. He was like, when he let his father's killer go, then he's suddenly like, okay, now I'm Snake Eyes. That's a sudden flip. And then he's like, I have honor. I gotta say, we gotta do all this. And it's like, now we're gonna fight together and go side by side. I'm like, well, hang on. And Tommy even tried to kill him on top of the car track. So it's like, Tommy didn't even fall for the transition at that point. Anyway. I'm not even going to go into the third challenge other than it was dumb, and what it should have been is a bunch of cobras, like regular sized cobras. I just got done watching Indiana Jones, but if it was a bunch of regular sized snakes and asps and stuff, and the whole point is just to keep your cool, right? You go in the pit,
have them advancing on you.
Yes.
You're like,
then yeah, you're zen, you're all calm, and then you can just quietly walk out. And that would be very meta, because Snake Eyes is just so cool, you know. It's the coolest character ever. I liked a lot of that stuff. The two last things, the G.I. Joe exposition dump. I am sorry. The moment you see the Cobra sign on the crates with weapons was awesome, and it's like, it was not focused, it wasn't emphasized, it was just there, it just happened. And then all of a sudden, within like 2 minutes from that scene, we are introduced to Scarlet, who Joe is. She has a whole Black Widow action sequence, and then the Baroness, all within like 2 minutes. It's like, you guys could have staggered this stuff out a little bit. Just give us a little. I mean, they had these 3 challenges that took like 45 minutes to get through all 3 of them throughout the movie, because apparently they go days between the challenges for some reason. But like in the script to tell us about the G.I. Joe and Cobra stuff, and who the Baroness is, it really felt like they added that later. Because really, if you had taken all 3 of those things out of it, the movie would have been the exact same movie. I really feel like they wrote a Snake Eyes movie and they said, we need to get some Easter eggs or cliffhangers in here for the future. And it felt like, here's a place to dump that exposition, and then here's a couple of fight sequences with Scarlet and Baroness later that really had no consequence of anything else, and a little bit of dialogue with Baroness with the stone, and then that's it.
I have a different explanation. Perhaps this script was something else completely. You know, they found a script that was literally a chop socky movie about 2 brothers who kind of, you know, have the one has this ulterior motive, and they were like, they latched onto, this is our Snake Eyes story, but we've got to get G.I. Joe in there somehow. So, make his dad a Joe, make his killer a Cobra. Ha, there we go.
That and either way, in retrospect, that they could have still staggered out that stuff.
Yeah.
It just didn't work. I just felt like they threw it all in there really quickly, and they could have kept the Baroness stuff a little mysterious for just a little bit. And I'm sorry, I did not like Baroness. I agree with you. I couldn't figure out what I didn't like about Scarlet. You were dead on. I think it was you that was talking about how she looks too young. She doesn't seem like she was able to have been experienced so much to be as good as she is and high ranking as she is. And she looks too baby-faced, too quiet, and doesn't look hard or experienced at all. I didn't like her.
It's a tough line to walk, because at the end of the day, this is an origins film, and these characters have to have longevity. But I think, yeah, there's a kind of an immortal or an eternal present that film stars can be at, and she's just
Yeah.
not at that. Like, I don't think Samara Weaving will ever look particularly
Hard and coarse and like rugged.
hard. Yeah, I suppose just experienced. I
Yeah.
wouldn't say weathered. I mean, she still has to look like an attractive female,
Of
but
course.
just someone who, you know, you can see experience behind the eyes, and yeah, you can't
I
pretend.
thought she was very non-expressive, and I every time she spoke, I was like, I don't like the other Scarlet either. I've not seen a really great Scarlet, but and Baroness, I didn't think she worked. She didn't work for me, and I'm floored that you didn't like what's her name from the Rise of Cobra. She was freaking perfect. I loved her as Baroness. I thought she did such a great job. But
The character wasn't written as a Baroness, though. I mean, come on, Tim. Like, even if you're tangentially linked to G.I. Joe, but you're not. You are a Joe fan. So does a brainwashed ex-fiance of Duke ring true as a Baroness?
Okay, I'm not going to defend the story in the background part. I'm saying
the actress
casting. Yeah. Like when she walked through, and she was heartless when she goes through, and she lets her husband get killed, like right there in front of her. She's like just shrugs it off, let's moves on, you know. And it's like this character, I didn't feel like had that same edge, where she was like, once they had the stone, she could have, like, this is Cobra, they would have had that place surrounded. She would have taken the stone, killed that guy immediately, and then all the troops would have come in and like taken out those guys. And half of them were already Cobra troopers or whatever, if I remembered. From what I understood, it's just they said we need backup when they're going into the campus later. But I was just like, it doesn't feel very Baronessy to follow through with all. I mean, other than the honor, I did like that. You do your thing. We'll help you with the castle and all that stuff. But there's a point where she would have been like, hey, screw this, we're just taking it. And the line where she says F this and takes off, perfect. That was Baroness. I loved it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just,
to be honest, I can't possibly rate Sienna Miller above Ursula Cabrera because she was playing with a stacked deck. I mean, in Rise of Cobra, that was not the Baroness at all. If you gave Sienna the Baroness's character and backstory, then perhaps she would have had a better shot at it. But all we know about Ursula Cabrera's Baroness is that she is absolutely ruthless. And that's at the heart of what makes Baroness sell. Whereas Sienna was, you know, she's a sweetheart.
There's this seductiveness. And
acting under the hypnosis or the nanites.
I didn't get a seductive vibe from this Baroness. I didn't get, and it's not about seduction, but like there's a sensuality about the character that I didn't feel was present. But anyway, last thing, I didn't feel like there was stakes. No blood on the dead father in the beginning. No, I think someone in the master, someone should have died in this. Even the what's her name that everyone thinks is going to be
Akiko.
She survived this. I thought she was dead in the snake pit, and that was going to trigger snake eyes. Like, everyone comes out of this like unscathed except for Tommy's reputation. That's it. And all the fans are all defending that. Like, why was he, like, he didn't do anything. He just used the stone, and they were told not to use the stone. Okay, was that such a bad punishment? He was used for, you know, whatever. But he succumbed to vengeance, and that was the thing. But or to revenge. So I don't know. I felt like it was just everyone kind of just floated through it, had their little moments, and they came out on top, and they all hugged in the Ewok village at the end of the movie. And I was like, okay. I just didn't feel any weight in the movie. And even with the beginning, again, they even lowered that down with the comedic beats, trying to make it heavy but not too heavy. I don't know if this was supposed to be for kids, because a lot of the stuff in this movie was not aimed at kids. I don't know. I again, tone is a big deal for me, and I couldn't figure out what the tone was other than a fun, like, ninja movie. And by the end of it, I had some good ninja action, but I didn't feel any grit to the story. But that's me.
Would you say that there have been any examples of like stakes that you buy in any of the previous G.I. Joe cinematic outings?
Well, I feel like they're goofy, comedic kind of movies. I don't feel, like, as far as stakes, no. But this one, the whole movie wasn't trying to be cheesy like the other ones.
Yeah, so you're suggesting that because this one had a tonal shift away from being just toys clunking together. Okay, those are my words, but so because this one attempted to do something different with the tone, the stakes needed to rise to meet that.
And where everyone's giving, the people that are appreciating it as a film, that they got a good cinematic experience, a good emotional experience. I'm like, well, yes, but I didn't feel there was a good tonal experience. I didn't feel that there was enough edge to, like, here's the launching of this tortured character. Snake Eyes is a tortured character. At the end of his experience, everyone came out okay. He lost his dad as a kid, but you know, what other character doesn't? And he's got to go after his brother, who was just kicked out and left his ring behind. Very non-dramatically too.
Much easier to leave a ring behind than to have a tattoo removed.
Yeah, that's true.
They got out of that one too easily.
But again, even Rise of Cobra, there's the arrow or the sword. He had his sword in his master's back, and he's like running off the campus. I'm like, there it is. And the little kid Snake Eyes like, I gotta solve this. You know, I was like, I bought that more than this. You know. Anyway,
would your answer change at all if it turned out that Storm Shadow's departure from the Arashikage was also staged? That he is a very deliberate plant in Cobra.
That the whole time that he was planted and knew about it, or you're saying this
that
whole
the
thing?
Arashikage, the sort of shadowy ninja organization tasked with these very surgical strikes, shall we say, on terrorist cells and gangsters, that Storm Shadow is being sent into Cobra to undermine it. No. Okay.
No.
Damn. Never mind then.
All right. Praise it up, my friend, because there's a lot of good things to say about this movie, and I'm sure a lot of things I had on my list are going to be things that you're going to approach. So what do you got, my friend?
All right. Well, I'm going to keep myself on the rails as well with a little list. I said it already that as Joe fans, our expectations are very moderated by seeing previous outings. So the fact that this one at least attempted to be more than just action figures, it's already huge points in my book. And the fact that the scale of it was that much more focused on the characters is also something that speaks to me. Like, if I'm not going to see accurate representations of a Tomahawk, a Mauler, a Rattler, a Night Raven, if they're not going to do the designs justice, then I don't want to see their funky Howler, Jet, Hong Kong nonsense.
Yes. My gosh. Yeah.
So give
agree.
me some fidelity to the characters instead. That's cool. Or give me something new, which is precisely what this seeks to do.
I liked how you described that on your review when you talked about how Snake Eyes is a very deep and old story and with a little bit of variations here and there, but like, if you're not going to stay true to that, then you better come up with something damn good. And I think you were satisfied with that, and I think there's a lot of things that worked.
Well, look, as a through and through G.I. Joe fan, I never expect a backstory to Snake Eyes to surprise me. You know, if anything, I expect it to be a reduction from what I already know. Like, if they're going to take out the Vietnam veteran angle, but they're still going to keep the Arashikage angle. Well, everything that happens to Snake Eyes in the Arashikage dojo, I know like the back of my hand. Right?
Yeah.
Right? Wrong. All of a sudden, they've decided to make Snake Eyes flawed. And the word I use is flawed because a lot of a lot of the fan base attached the adjective likable and unlikable to these characters.
Yeah.
And that's a bit of a twee understanding of the world. Like, to date, Snake Eyes has been Captain America with a scarred face.
Yeah.
Like, he's been this glory boy who does everything right, is virtuous, is honorable. He's got his brothers and sisters in arms' best interests at heart at all times. He's prepared to be self-sacrificing. Well, guess what? Snake Eyes, G.I. Joe Origins seeks to
give him some
tell us that, just inform us that he wasn't always that way. It has given him an arc.
Yeah.
He wasn't fully formed as this virtuous character, that he was in it for himself and he had to learn some pretty hard lessons
Yeah.
to become the man that we want him to be, to become Captain America with a burnt face,
Right.
scarred face, what do you want, whatever you want, with a vow of silence,
But
whatever
in all
route
that,
they were planning on going.
yeah, the silence, the burned face, the tragic, and the tragedies in his background. That's all what makes the tormented character that does good with all those, with all that baggage, all those wounds. He goes forward doing what's right at all times. That's what's awesome about Snake Eyes. I like the idea of giving him a little different angles, a little grit, a little darkness in his background. It wasn't always perfect, this white knight the whole time.
It was a jaw on the floor kind of moment when we had that revelation in the film. And as I say, like, that immediately, like, aside from the relief I felt when things kicked into gear and started feeling like a film that respected its audience,
Yeah.
instead of just shilling toys to children, like, the moment that was the first moment I felt relief. The second moment I felt relief was like, oh my goodness, they're telling a story worth telling. Like, it's not just a retelling of what we already know. They've hit on something fresh, and it's not automatically bad.
Right.
Who knew they could do that with G.I. Joe? I certainly didn't. I was pleasantly surprised.
Would you say this is as good as the first Transformers movie? Because I like the first Transformers movie. And they all
I don't think that's aged well either, unfortunately, especially in the light of
Bumblebee.
What has happened to Transformers since then.
Yeah.
Bumblebee was fine. I'm not Transformers' biggest fan, but yeah, flame decals on Optimus Prime notwithstanding, I was still prepared to give Transformers the benefit of the doubt after the first one. So yes, Tim, I guess I enjoyed the first Transformers movie. By the second one, I was like, this is
that's me too.
Unwatchable, man.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I do appreciate the fact that, at least on a meta level, this is the first time we've had a G.I. Joe movie where we have a leading man who isn't just some hype machine that they get to push up the popularity of the film, aka the Dwayne Johnson effect, or a leading man who would rather be doing anything else.
Yes.
As in Channing Tatum. Like Henry Golding.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Bruce Willis.
Don't get me started, man. The guy.
Yeah. I've never watched Retaliation since the first time I saw it in the theaters. I own it. I have a couple copies up there, but I can't sit down and watch it just for those two. I love The Rock, but that's you don't abandon the entire cast of Joes just so you can afford those two guys. That was a huge misstep. But anyway, go ahead.
I mean, exactly how many scenes was Willis in? 3. One of them was in his house, probably. The other one, like that bit on the flatbed of that pickup truck, like that was total green screenage.
Yeah.
You didn't have to go.
As soon as they announced that he was Joe Colton, I was like, oh no. He's not gonna care about this character, and you need someone with passion. Oh, anyway.
Totally. So it's lovely. Henry Golding has been an absolute darling, and I would gladly see him take up the mantle again.
I love what's his name that played Tommy. I love both of their performances.
Andrew Koji, yes, fantastic. The leading men, wonderful. But also, I have to shout some props at the woman who played Akiko. I would gladly see her in another movie as well, because all her scenes were strong. Mm-hmm. Her fight choreography was strong. Mm-hmm. She just, I loved her. She had
except for the super jumps. I thought there were too many super jumps in this movie, but
oh come on, that sequence when she leaps off the bike onto, like, sort of rebounds off the truck onto the other truck.
Cool. That stuff was cool. I'm talking about when she jumped over Snake Eyes when he was like and he like spins up in the air or something. There was a couple of times where they fly in this movie.
And then this movie has giant snakes in it, like a little bit of a little bit of like enhanced human acrobatics is fine in my books. And besides, any kind of chop socky movie is going to have wire work, but I found the wire work to be particularly palatable in Snake Eyes. Like it was, you know, you were watching ninjas scale walls and leap but they weren't Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon in full flight, which
Yes.
is an
Or
art form in
Matrix.
and of itself, but it does kind of break
I agree.
break the believability a little bit.
I agree.
And then the snakes arrive. So
Yeah.
my
By the way,
point falls flat.
I wanted to thank you, Steve, for your comment and giving some kind of an explanation for why the driver did not stop that truck with all the fighting going on and explosions all around it, driving over motorcycles and stuff. It's like, well, would you stop? And I'm like, you know what? That's a solid point, because that was really bothering me for that 20-minute sequence. I'm like, why is the guy still driving?
Call the highway police, of course, but don't stop. Whatever you do, don't stop.
Okay, good.
I don't know what number we're on, but I did like the setting. I did like the Arashikage Dojo. It's a setting that we've seen smatterings of. I think it's just, I'm afraid, I mean, to redress your point, Tim, that there just wasn't enough time to show the inner life of the castle. We just had these...
like an hour and a half.
A lot of it was scene work amongst our leads, and then these big kind of marquee moments where everyone is very much in their ceremonial garb. Like when the Hardmaster is administering his test, there's an audience there, and ain't nobody going to be doing sculpture and painting on the side while this shit's going down. Like, it's
right. You know, I can solve it this quick and save them money.
Yes.
He only had to go through 2 challenges and cut out the second one. That's how you save it, because that 10 minutes didn't need that. But that's just me. You got something out of his manifestation that I didn't think worked, but that's okay. But I think that would have saved them some floating bubbles, Matt, or CGI too.
Fireflies. Okay. Look, the set and it was beautifully shot. Like, they definitely took their time and let it breathe. Like the forests, the buildings. The
stalking in the forest, when he with the the ninja training, when he was when they're running up the hill with the arrows and climbing the rocks and stuff. That was so cool. Like, again, I want to see him failing a little, but they show him fall once, but it's like, I want to see him struggling to keep up with them so you can see his growth. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, so yeah, it's beautifully shot. So I have addressed the surprise aspect to Snake Eyes' reveal. Seeing a flawed man trying to juggle his virtues and these enormous forces, forces of good and evil, and then ultimately side with the good guys. That's an arc. Finally, a G.I. Joe movie with an actual character in it and an arc. So there's that. I'm always going to be referring back to the other films, because I guess they're just low-hanging fruit, Tim. It's too easy to take shots at them. But like, yeah, as I say, as Joe fans, we've been getting so used to mediocrity. Okay, and my last point, I'll wrap this up quickly. It's just, I can't help but hammer home the point that I feel a sense of relief about this film. Even if it's never followed up on, I know that there's been a fan furore about this outing, and that I personally have been very, very privy to it. I didn't bury my head in the sand. I was reading everyone's comment threads. I was seeing the automatic dislike for this film, and the trailer didn't help. The trailers didn't help. I'm on a new level. Like, come on, don't cheapen the experience by making it like some kind of gangster hip hop. It did have a little bit more integrity than those trailers were selling. But I understand the problem with, or the quandary of a trailer, is that it has to appeal to a very wide audience, and it needs to kind of set its flag in the sand as like this like hip, trendy, cool film of the now. But
and I think they wanted to avoid leaning too hard into it being G.I. Joe, where they wanted to sell this character, which is, everyone identifies that's G.I. Joe, instead of being like, here's a new G.I. Joe movie, give us another shot. Instead it was like, here's Snake Eyes, look how cool this movie looks, and it's there. And then we're gonna flavor in some G.I. Joe later. But I think it not being G.I. Joe Snake Eyes would have been a poor choice. It was like, Snake Eyes, this is the guy. and it's going to be great. And he was great. By the way, this is a G.I. Joe Origins movie. You know what I mean? And the trailers really didn't sell anything G.I. Joe.
And as we've spoken about earlier, like, the film still hadn't really gotten my nervous feelings down well into the first scene. That still had me going, oh, this is gonna be bad. This is like, everyone who stayed away from this film did so justifiably. But boy, oh boy, when we saw our leading man and our chief villain have their first scene together, I was like, okay, there's something to this. And by the time Snake Eyes cut Storm Shadow's bonds with that, like, he did this sort of epic leap into the air, and the ropes got cut. I was like, yes, yes, this is awesome.
Yeah.
So
even seeing the second time, every time when he got down into that stance with the two swords, I got chills. Even though I knew exactly what was going to happen, but it was slick. It was slick, and I love Snake Eyes from the first movie. Or Storm Shadow. I love Snake Eyes. I love Ray Park, but I love when he's walking around. He like walks by the pillar and cuts the guy behind from. He wasn't even looking. Just cuts the guy, throwing his ninja stars and like killing everyone, like ricocheting off walls and stuff. Like, Storm Shadow was freaking just badass in the first couple movies. I love everything to do with the ninja stuff. But this was just as good in different ways. But seeing him go into those poses without the costume, it was just awesome. I was happy with it. Very happy.
Any film that has me shriek with a kind of like excitement at multiple junctures is going to get definitely a passing grade for me. Yeah. And beyond that, I mean, we are so jaded as film watchers nowadays, and I think part of the problem is the death of the cinematic experience. An opportunity to surrender yourself to the images in front of you, put the damn smartphone away, no distractions, be enveloped by a big screen. You know, you're completely immersed in this. If it wasn't for the slurping and the munching of popcorn, which is also so essential to the experience, and I'm glad I
have a room
myself.
full of people laugh together, or to scream together, or jump together.
Well, I don't know how full your screening was, Tim.
No, not at this movie. I'm just saying the experience. I'm just saying that's why when something comes out streaming on Disney or whatever, I'm still going to go to the theater to see it because I want to support theaters. I'm very passionate about that, and that's why.
I hope there are enough of us to keep them going. But I mean, the pandemic has certainly shuttered a lot of cinemas permanently.
Right.
It's a terrible loss, and one that I don't know if we'll ever recover from because of the current surge of streaming services, and the fact that people have epic home cinemas. I mean, why would you want to breathe someone else's air when? Yeah. But this is the argument. The argument is this device, and the fact that you can now pause your viewing experience, go to the bathroom. I mean, you should be holding that in.
Yes,
you should be torturing yourself. You should be.
It adds to the intensity,
the agony. Exactly. You're like, I really love this film, but I want it to end, please.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Oh, and an eighth point, though, as I say, I wasn't keeping track. Like, I don't know if it felt long to you, but for me, I was fully expecting like a fourth act to this film when he got the uniform. The fact that it ended there, because I wasn't watching my clock. The fact that it ended there, I was like, wow. That was short. That didn't feel like a groaning, itchy butt kind of I need a pee, super long Lord of the Rings kind of movie.
Pacing was really good. It had really good pacing. There was action there was constantly something happening, progressing the story and keeping you entertained with your eyes. And at no point
you're just saying that now. I will concede that the final act falls apart a bit. Like a lot.
Well, it's still action packed, but I'm saying it's not. It's definitely the last part isn't tight like it should be, and I have a lot of concerns when Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes are approaching the temple, and Storm Shadow says, "You protect my grandmother, I'll go after the stone." When literally they're in like 2 feet of each other. Like, why do we even decide to have this conversation? And then they go and you lose track of everyone's following different people just to have your girl power moment when they all 3 women step in frame, and then they have an off-camera elimination of everyone in that room. A really lame like shootout with Scarlet and Baroness where they're missing each other from like 10 feet away with Uzis. Why Storm Shadow or Snake Eyes doesn't end up with the when she picks up and holds the Uzi to the camera, I was like, that's gonna go to Snake Eyes by the end of the movie. Nope. And then all the
Chekhov's Uzi.
yeah, right. He's got to get off his gear for the end of the movie. And just all that stuff. I was like, just because they want to build these moments for the trailer with the three masters walking down, and then 2 minutes later you have the whole row of them coming down on the guy with the stone, and it's like, what? These are cool trailer shots, but like, there's no when Storm Shadow or when Snake Eyes meets Scarlet for the first time, and he says to her, "What's she doing here?" Talking about Baroness, and she says the dumb line, "Oh, for the moment our whatever's aligned," and I'm like, you don't know him. I was like, why? I know you're G.I. Joe and you like have all this intel, but you guys are meeting for the first time. And then the next shot in another scene, then he walks up, he's like, "Yo, Joe." And I didn't even catch that the first time until everyone complained about it. Then I watched, I was like, why would he say that if they just were talking a few minutes ago? I was like, what is...
Because
anyway.
It's in the script.
Yeah.
Tim, it's going to be very interesting to maybe get a bit more insight into the creative process of this film, if anyone bothers to make a documentary about it. But I'm more and more of the opinion that this was obviously a pre-existing script that then had its G.I. Joe elements inserted into it. And that's why suddenly we have these awkward gear changes every time it's Baroness and Scarlet, and every time you need these kind of like team shots to make up an action figure lineup.
Yep.
These elements were imposed upon the creative team by Hasbro, because at the end of the day, it's all about selling toys, baby.
Yeah. And I gotta say, leaving this movie, I had no interest in going to buy a toy. I just wanted to go buy a cool hoodie because there were some awesome hoods in this movie. And that's all I wanted. I was not sold to go buy some more of this stuff.
Well, look, I'm not a 6-inch collector at all, but I felt like I wanted to pick up a Storm Shadow. I was like, yes. Why are they not in the scale I collect?
Yeah, exactly. Oh well. Well, Steve, I love your passion, and I'm not going to call you an apologist. I call myself an apologist for The Rise of Cobra, definitely not retaliation. But I enjoyed this movie. I enjoyed this discussion, and I love that you're happy to go out there and spread the word of what's good about G.I. Joe, and that you're such an optimist. I'll say that. You're not an apologist, but you're definitely an optimist. And there's a lot of
Optimist Prime. Well, you've called me a few things, Tim, but I mean, expert being one of them, maybe not. Apologist, probably not, but I will accept just passionate fan. And I'm not above calling bullshit out when I see it.
Right. I saw your Rise of Skywalker or your Last Jedi review, so I know you're not a pulling punches.
but there are so many voices bashing this film. It's kind of deafening. So while it was far from a perfect cinematic experience, I think it's important to hold up the laudable elements, just as a kind of a tonic to the negativity, because I did enjoy myself. So there's got to be something of merit there, because I didn't enjoy myself in Rise of Cobra. I didn't enjoy myself in Retaliation. But this time I was like, yes, this is fun. This was a positive experience. Let me try and share a little bit of that. It probably won't necessarily change anyone's minds about it. It probably won't necessarily sell a ticket to anyone who otherwise wasn't going to watch it. But just know that, and this is such a soppy sentiment, so I can't believe I'm saying it, but you out there, you can enjoy my joy, right?
I'm happy that you're happy. Yeah, exactly.
I think there you go. That lifelong Joe fan who didn't have a bad time watching a G.I. Joe movie.
There's
accomplished.
A lot to appreciate about this film, and in the beginning of it, you have Henry on screen before the movie starts talk about his love for the work that was put into it, and appreciation for the cinematographers, the choreographers, the stuntmen, everything, and how much fun he had doing it. I don't believe that was a performance. That was him speaking off script, even if it's scripted, whatever. But he meant those words, and you can see the love that went into filming this movie and performing in this movie. And I don't think there was no Bruce Willis moment anywhere in it. No one was just signing a check, and no one was just writing terrible jokes. I think the script could have used another couple drafts, but some script doctors. But all that aside, again, it wasn't perfect, like you said, but it was fun. If you watch this whole thing, and you probably watched this whole thing if you've already seen the movie and you came to see Steve. My fans
celestial level, man, celestial level.
My fans aren't going to be watching this because they probably don't care about G.I. Joe as much, but maybe the people that watch this conversation can reconsider.
But they like you, Tim. Come on.
They love me. Yeah.
Exactly. So watch this.
I'm not bashing on myself or my channel. I'm just saying. They hear me a lot. They hear me talk quite a bit. But I was saying, like, maybe it would help people reconsider some of the thoughts or concerns and give it another shot, because I liked it more the second time than I did the first time.
Okay.
So,
good. And
that was going in after hearing a lot of people talk about it. So, add this to the conversation. It's a great movie to have conversation, and there's a lot of pros and cons, and it's fun to get some of those thoughts out. And so, Steve, thank you for coming and helping. It was therapeutic, and I did come out a little more a little more patient and tolerant with my concerns. Totally had issues, I still feel, but it's and editing issues here and there, but it's a fun movie and really great stunts, really great performance, and music's good too. We did talk about music, but very good, great score, or great film.
No top 40. It was entirely original music.
Yeah,
well orchestrated, subtle. It didn't have those kind of like there's no Black Eyed Peas or the White Stripes. It was all very much in the service of the film, as opposed to being like, ooh, this is the music video moment where everyone has their guns and got like the rock and roll track, AC/DC playing in the background or whatever.
That's why I don't like Thor Ragnarok, for that reason right there.
But that's having fun in a different sense. It's not trying to keep you immersed. Right. It's trying to be like fireworks, man.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, anyway, they do that differently in the Thor movies. It's fun, but yeah, the score in this was very mood setting, and it contributed to the tone. It was great. But anyway, Steve, this was so fun. Thank you so much for joining and for being here. For anyone watching who's not familiar with Steve, you can check him out on G.i.Joburg on YouTube. And then what's your other information, your Patreon and your podcast?
G.i.Joburg's the you can find us anywhere. I mean, G.i.Joburg on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, Facebook. We've got a Facebook group that's quite lively. Good vibes too.
Nice. You guys are
YouTube.
Good. Yes. You guys are such positive people. On your fans are positive on your channel versus some other G.I. Joe channels are kind of jerks.
I'd like to think we're not gatekeepers. Fortunately, as an administrator of a Facebook group, I haven't ever had to step in and tell people, not digging those vibes, man. So I guess everyone just plays nice.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what I'd do if there was a serious fight break out in G.I.Joburg.
I'll start something. Let's put you to the test. Anyways, you have a great community, and I'm proud to be a follower and a supporter of you. And I look forward. Seriously, if anyone watches this and doesn't know Steve, go check out his channel. He and his friends, Paul and Rob, especially as co-hosts, they have great conversations, go really deep into all the fun things and all the aspects of G.I. Joe. It's just great, and I love when you guys talk about movies. And so I'm gonna have you come back some other time. We'll talk about the other movies that I love and you don't love so much. Well, the first. Maybe we'll do your top 7 things you didn't like about Rise of Cobra, and I'll do the contrary. That would be fun.
What was that Christopher Lambert film that you want me to watch?
The Hunted. Go watch. Get The Hunted. Phenomenal movie. It's a beautiful movie. We're gonna come back to that.
Excellent. Tim, thank you for having me, my friend.
Okay, thanks. So I'll let you go to bed. For everyone, thanks for watching. Check out G.i.Joburg, and thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time on Saints, not Thanks. Thanks from Saints on Cinema. Thanks, Steve. See you later, buddy.
Yo, Joburg, baby.